A bunch of earnings reports to go through. We have a bunch of earnings still coming up tonight and tomorrow. Earnings season is going to end soon. So let's go through that. First of all, I just want to say I've been talking about how we're in a safe zone for stocks here. You know the thesis. We've been talking about it for a couple of weeks. But we are approaching the 200 DMA. Actually, let's do this first. We are approaching the 200 DMA in the NASDAQ and in the SPY. And we have CPI data next week. So I have talked to you about this before that a hiccup could come August 10th when CPI is released. And there's not much more room to get to the 200-day moving average. So I think it's very possible that this is going to be a magnet. And I also think it's wise to take some off the table there, sell covered calls. We don't know exactly what's going to happen, right? We don't know, is this going to be a bear market rally and it's going to peak here and retract? Is it going to break that and we're in a new bull market? We don't know the answer to that, but there's a risk that it's a bear market rally and this 200 DMA will mark the top of this bear market rally or near there, the 200 DMA. So I plan on taking some off the table, raising some cash over the next several days, particularly more aggressively when we get close to the 200 DMA. I'm not sure necessarily that I'll do it today. And also sell covered calls. In fact, you know what? Maybe I already started doing that because I did finally sell Square. I caught in, had a nice run in Square, and earnings are this afternoon. So probably wise to start taking some off the table because we only have a few percentage points left till we get that to that 200 DMA. All right, so let's talk about some earnings. The top three here are all StoryTrading VIP picks, actually, or at least once was. Identiv, I'm not sure if it's still actively on our tracking sheet, but we got BCRX, Identiv INVE, and INMB. BCRX, we're getting some good information from Zach in our community who's staying on top of this stock. You can see the stock is up 16% right at the 200 DMA. So the earnings were good, and clinical hold has been lifted. A partial hold was lifted with some restrictions to restart a program. Here we go. Lifted partial clinical hold on BCX 9930 program. You can see beat on the top and bottom line, although still a little loss, but stock is reacting well right at the 200 DMA. I have no opinion on this myself right now. It's very volatile, hard to trade. If you got into this at 8, congrats. Maybe time to take some off at the 200 DMA if you're in early. But we're going to continue hearing a little bit from Zach in our community this morning to see what he thinks if this still has legs. But personally, I'm not going to chase it here. I don't have a position right now at $13, but be careful of that 200 DMA. It briefly broke the 200 DMA this morning. I'm like, what? I didn't expect that to happen. And it was short-lived. And as it approached this next gap, by the way, if it does break, there's a big resistance of 14 right here. This is the gap resistance here, the top of this red candle at $14. And there's also previously support way back here. So it's got some two big resistance levels here at $13 and $14. Identiv, I did re-enter this recently. They had earnings last night. So this was one of my favorite stocks that I rode last year through this big move. And then we're reviewing it yesterday in happy hour to see why I had sold it. And someone, I totally forgot, but someone's like, Ben, didn't you sell this? Didn't you have a valid reason for selling this? And I forgot when it was exactly, but it was, I kept most of my gains. It was up here somewhere before most of these big drops. And we went back and we looked at WhatsApp and we found my note of why I sold. And the reason I sold was because I was not happy that this company was not turning a profit yet. The revenue keeps on growing, but they're just not profitable yet. So here last night, we see that they beat on the top and bottom line again. And the revenue is still growing, but again, they're not profitable yet. A loss of $251,000. You can see the revenue beat by $1 million. So I don't know. I'm getting a little tired of this. I did re-enter at like 1330. You can see the bid is 1362. And in this environment, this market, I don't know that this is a market where I want to be in stocks that are not turning a profit yet, aside from the ones that I know really well and I'm committed to for the long term, like Dario. when I have tech stocks in this sector, like when I have PLAB and AIR, and we have CLFD, all of these stocks printing money hand over fist, and so also growing, why do I want to be in a stock where it's earnings are not really happening for it? And I'm not going to sit here and talk my book. I didn't sell this yet. If thinly traded, other people stay quiet with their opinions until they have a chance to take their own actions. I never do that at Story Trading because my commitment comes to you first. There's a paid service, so I take care of your community. I won't talk my book, and if I don't like earnings, I'll tell you even before I have a chance to sell. So, but again, it was a top and bottom beat. I'm hoping the market bids it up, because it was a top and bottom line beat. I mean, they always give very bullish commentary on their revenue and the projects coming up, but I'm getting tired of the fact that they haven't been able to translate this into profits yet. So I'm looking at potentially selling this morning, especially because of what I just talked about. 200 DMA next week on the NASDAQ. I want to get ready to be conservative, raise some money. This is a spot where I can raise some money. INVE. INMB had earnings last night. Now, as you see very often with biotech stocks, the initial reaction is down because people are just reacting to the headlines. Oh, they're not making money yet. Oh, they have a loss. So that's a given at this point. It's a research phase company, INMB. Now, I was pretty excited yesterday because we broke over the 200 DMA. It was on very low volume, though. So I am also awaiting some comments from people in the community who are on the conference call. Is not on the conference call. In here, we're waiting for the clinical hold to be lifted, and they did reference it in the press release, but in the press release, they did not say a specific timeline on when this clinical hold. It's a manufacturing hold, not a clinical hold. So I know we interviewed Dan Carlson last week, and he expected that hold to be lifted in September. Not sure where he's getting the info from, but we also had someone in our community who their father's on the list to be treated in this trial, and they recently received an email saying we expect the trial to continue soon. I think that's the main catalyst, the next main catalyst that's going to move the stock, but definitely a little disappointing. At least this morning, we have a big seller, 5,000 shares at $10. So perhaps it's not the time to break over this 200 DMA, but we'll have to collaborate with people who listen to the conference call. It's often the details on the conference call which can cause the significant moves up and down in the stock today. So perhaps there's something there. I don't have that information for you yet in terms of what was said on the conference call to see if we can handicap the odds of whether we break out of this 200 DMA or not. But the catalysts, I guess we just have to wait for those catalysts, that manufacturing hold being lifted, and I think that we can get the move from there. I really like this setup because previously this stock has really broken out big and sharply when it breaks out of resistance levels. So that's why I'm a little bit excited here. We're at the 200 DMA because I think if we can get a strong breakout above it, this could be a 50% return. 10 to 15, I think, is in the cards, but maybe not just yet. All right, a couple others. We had this one brought to us in our community. LNTH by Neil. It was noted a couple times last few days. I don't know enough about it yet. We haven't had a presentation on it yet, so I didn't present it to you guys. But anyway, they had earnings this morning, so a lot of conviction from Neil. Maybe at some point we'll ask him to present it. The earnings was a beat and raise. Again, they keep on beating and raising. It's some sort of healthcare company, 89-cent EPS. And look at this. This is just a rocket ship chart. So continuation this morning, perhaps. I mean, that EPS is really good. If you annualize that 89 cents, make it easy, back in the napkin math, round it up to $1, annualize it to $4, slap a 20 PE on it. What do you get? 80. I do this back in the napkin math very often to get a gauge of maybe where the stock should initially trade at in that initial reaction, and you'll be shocked how often it works. Like, you don't need DCF or anything for that immediate reaction. This thing went right to $80, right? That's exactly the math I did. So probably not expensive here. Is it going to keep running? I don't know, but this EPS is higher than Clearfield's EPS. CLFD, which had like 83 cents, this has like 89 cents or so. And Clearfield went over $100. So do we have room? I like these setups. actually, when you have this big correction on good news and then it can go back up. So that's something potentially I'll be looking at today, but I want to get comfortable a little bit more on what they do, why Neil thinks that this product is going to keep on doing well and the growth is going to continue. So that's something we are going to be looking at. Thank you, Neil, for bringing tonight. SIGA Square. I did sell my Square yesterday because I got in early, had a nice move on it. Earnings are after the close. Could this rocket after earnings? Yeah, it could. Look at these big moves it had, from below 100 to 150. Could this go to the hundreds? Can it make its way to 200 DMA? Yeah, 126. It could also disappoint. This could also be getting ahead of itself. Maybe it's already being baked in because of PayPal and SoFi and Visa and MasterCard. Maybe all this is already baked in and it's going to sell off on the news. But I do like the technicals, 2050 DMA cross. So I can't know for sure what it's going to do. Staying out of it now, but watching it. Perhaps if it's a blowout, we'll try to get in on a pullback tomorrow morning. But for now, I'm happy with the gains I made over a few days. And we'll be watching Square this afternoon after the close. Along that, we have SIGA. I've talked about this ad nauseum. Definitely risky here. Short puts, the smarter way to play it. That's most of my position in short puts. I do have some common shares as well, but not too many. That's going to be an interesting report to look at. All right, a couple other news items. CYRN, oh man, am I so disappointed with how they did this. CYRN, they finally closed that transaction. They're getting $10.5 million cash on a $13.5 million market cap company. Okay, $10.5 million cash. But look at this stock. It's just terrible performance. Why? Because they did a shelf offering a few days ago, and the shelf offering was huge. It was multiple times over their market cap. I forgot the exact number, but I think it was 50 million or so. And what do you say? The market cap's 13 million. They did a 50 million mixed shelf offering. I mean, they didn't sell those yet, but it's on the shelf. They plan to. And then a few days later, they said, yeah, we closed the deal. We got 10.5 million. I mean, that's just malpractice. I don't know what they're thinking. I sold when they did the shelf. I got out. I took a loss. Very disappointed because this was headed to 270. If they did this in the right order, I believe we'd be on our way to 270 right now with this closing. But I'm going to keep this on watch because EV, enterprise value-wise, this is pretty much a zero enterprise value, maybe negative. I have to go back and look at that balance sheet. But I don't know if it's worth it with that 50 million shelf looming there. I don't know that this is going to take off, but I'm just showing you this to show my disappointment with management. I mean, that's just dumb. I don't know why you would do that when 10.5 million cash is coming through any day. I mean, do the shelf offering afterwards. It's crazy. Anyway, IPI earnings are tomorrow. So we've got that on our watch list. Here's a trade idea for you. GOEV. I got back in yesterday. So this is not an investment. It's a trade based on catalysts, sentiment, and technicals. Fundamentals have to raise a lot of money still. So this is not something I'm going to be like holding. A lot of core position. But I like this bounce off the 20 DMA. And these are the catalysts that took it up. They had a Walmart deal. And then they had a deal with some federal government. I forgot what it was. Was it USPS? No, it was the military. I think maybe it was a military. I don't remember. But they had a U.S. government agency. So there's two catalysts separated by no news in the middle. Took it to $5 resistance, pulled all the way back to the 20 DMA. Seems to be bouncing off the 20 DMA. So I took a position in this. It looks like it's ready for a bounce over here. So, if we get a spike to 4+, I'm probably out unless there's news that compels me to stay longer. So that's a trade I went into, GOEV. PLAB, I want to note, there was an insider sale last night. Not a massive sale. It was a director. It wasn't a CEO or an executive. So one of the directors sold, I think, $50,000 worth of stock, 2,000 shares yesterday. So just something to be aware of for those of you who might be worried about something like that, or they want to book profits. You're more than welcome to take profit on something like that. I'm not going to, but I'm up so much on this as we approach CPI data next week, as the markets approach the 200 DMA, I may take some off the table or I might sell covered calls. So that's the reason I'm stacked. These are like potentially stacked catalysts, right? I like taking action on stacked catalysts. macro 200 DMA. So you got the technicals. We also have the technicals here. 25 to 27 is the range of resistance in PLAB. We have CPI next week. We have an insider sale. All of that is starting to nudge me in the direction of maybe I should take some off the table or sell covered calls, but I still plan on this being a large core position, and I do want to hold a nice core into the earnings report, which should be in a couple weeks. Date hasn't been announced yet, so we're waiting for that date to be announced on PLAB. VTSI, I was really disappointed with the price action. I guess I misinterpreted. I didn't get to the point where I would buy more. And if it reaches like $5 or below, I'm a buyer. But I thought this would pop above, into closer, getting to the 550, 60 range. Maybe it still will. Maybe it'll take a few days. We have 2 more catalysts coming, 2 more earnings reports coming in the next 2.5 weeks. So, I did give my commentary that I like the new co-CEO. I like the focus on military, and I'm hoping this does make its way to 550 or 6. But so far, early indicators, it did not have that move there. So I'm a little disappointed on that because I did pick up some trading shares at 502. I still have trading shares at 475, and I'd like to sell them closer to 550 to 6 rather than at like 550 and 520, etc. So waiting for that. SMSI broke the 282 resistance I was looking at. $3 resistance is next. I think $3 is a massive resistance level, an important resistance level. If it breaks above $3 on volume, I think it could indicate some sort of trend reversal, but we have to wait to see if that actually happens. Kodak has been on fire, guys. Unbelievable. Earnings are coming up, I guess, next week. This is one beautiful chart, isn't it? So nothing more to say. We have to wait for earnings, but this is just gorgeous. I still have a core position in this, but I probably will take some off the table either before the earnings report or before CPI next week, or as the market's approaches 200 DMA. So that's going to be another source of where I raise some cash because this has been up significantly. Just want to bring LUCD to your attention. LUCD. Okay, this is a stock that was introduced to me by someone on social media a few months ago. They actually introduced me to management. I had a private call with management and investor relations and talked extensively about what they do. Seems like an interesting story. They do like cancer screening, esophageal cancer screening, a less invasive way to do that. And did not yet invite them to StoryTrading or anything like that, but maybe it's time. This is getting some noise on social media. There have been some people talking about the stock, and then this morning there was some news which seems interesting. Newly published American Gastroenterologic Association clinical practice update supports esophageal precancer screening using LUCD Diagnostic, EsoGuard, and EsoCheck. So this sector is like always interesting to me. This, along with DermTech DMTK, because of the success of Exact Sciences EXAS. Now, differences though this is not an in-home test. You got to go to different centers that they have set up, LUCD, to take this test, but definitely interesting because we have obviously the technicals have been looking good, and we have social media folks starting to talk about this, and then you get news this morning. So that's something that we're going to watch on our watch list today. Perhaps there's a trade in it over there for us. And that's it, man. Did I screw up on CHWA? Who knows? We're waiting. I had to take a gamble. I mean, it's crazy what's going on with de-SPACs and low floats and IPOs. It's absolutely insane. I took a chance on CHWA. We're waiting for this to de-SPAC into PET. Apparently, the float will be 280,000 shares. So this thing's probably fundamentally worth like $2. Not the typical kind of stock I trade in. Definitely a gamble, and I'm losing on that gamble right now. My average is like $10.50. So we'll have to see if that works out, where I take a nasty loss. Whatever, it happens sometimes. Going out of my comfort zone and trying something because it's a hot play right now to be in these kind of trades, and we'll see if that happens over the next couple days. I'm not something I'm going to hold for a long time. I'm only going to give a couple days. We're waiting for this to switch to PET, and maybe that's when I sell. Give it a day after, maybe that day of, maybe one more day, and that's it. And I'll get out, either for a loss or maybe it works out and we make a big gain. So that's about it. Air has been on fire. Watching that. We don't have time to get into the details again. ANDE, we noted earnings yesterday. I'm not playing it. I've been burned too many times with stocks that their earnings are like one time in nature, or we can't, not necessarily one time, but we can't foresee the sustainability of those earnings. This is trading at like a 5 PE, but you can see the RSI is at 77, and it's been very hard to trade this, very choppy. Congrats to those of you in it. I think Matt may have a big position in our community, so obviously it's done very well lately, but I'm staying away from ANDE myself at this time. And as CTLP keeps on going, I still have that 7 target, but I may again sell this before the 7 target. 100 DMA first. I'm looking to take some off the table. So that's the theme for today. Is while I think we're in a pretty good spot, maybe even perhaps through midterms, things can be decent. I do think we're at risk of a pullback once we hit the 200 DMA. It's all going to be about valuations and fundamentals. And is the S&P 500 overvalued? Is the NASDAQ overvalued? Those are the types of actions we're going to be getting. But I don't mind that too much. I don't think that impacts my core longs that much, because this is not the type of action at this point where it's massive market fear and liquidation. And, we've never seen anything like this, and unprecedented, increases in interest rates. Like, that's not what's going on now. This is, it's almost like a normal market. Markets go up, they go down, they hit a resistance level. Oh, it's overvalued, it retracts. Like, this type of price action we're seeing right now, I don't think is something that's alarming, that's going to cause a massive market-wide liquidation. So I'm not planning on any huge moves. I'm just planning on taking some off the table in case we get a pullback next week that can give me some good entries and something else. So that's how I'm playing it. Of course, we look at that. I thought Square was after the close. It looked like Square just came out. Did it? What's going on? Or is that bad data? Oh, that was bad data. Okay, Square is after the close. Sometimes TD does that. That's pretty funny. All right, guys. So we'll continue chatting in the chat rooms. Thank you very much for joining. Have a great day.